So, Anuj, let's start with your journey at Apple. What were you doing there? What skill sets that you picked? How did you understand technology there? And does the same things apply here, or the world has changed altogether the moment you get into a very different kind of a use case?
Yeah, sure. So before I like to start my journey from my master's time at University of Michigan. So I did my master's from there. So my major there was different from what I'm doing right now. So I'm into AI right now. But there my major was VLSI and embedded systems. But my minor was in ML and AI. So I did courses from there. So post
This
that
is when? When was that?
that was around 2017. So I joined after my bachelor's from NSIT. I went to University of Michigan directly, and basically then joined there. And it was 1.5 years there. So there were some overlapping courses between like hardware and ML side. And that is what I think we see companies like Nvidia that's building on top of that, basically hardware for ML. How these Gen AI use cases are working on hardware. I think that was one of the interesting use cases that I learned there. Yeah. And then post that, I went on to join Apple. So there, I was working in DRAM memory controller team. So we used to design and verify the memory controller, the DRAM part that goes into various devices. So there was one team that worked on phones, iPads, their laptops, and even the Vision Pro that came out. So if we understand like DRAM is core of, I think what Gen AI is happening at the because the bandwidth that is needed for Gen AI use case is provided by DRAM. So RAM is basically okay, like in if we understand in layman terms, okay, how many tabs you can open in a browser, or that is RAM, like how many parallel workloads can run on that. And Gen AI is all about that, like to support those parallel workloads and support that processing power. So the first project that I did there was the first laptop that came out. So that was my first project. So it was very secretive project in that sense because we did not know what we were working on because it was a big transition from Intel to the Apple chip, and the news wasn't out until it got launched. So yeah, that was my first project, and there I worked on a security feature that helps like prevent jailbreaks and stuff. So and post that I have worked on different products. So I have worked on iPad product, I have worked on phone products, and I was there with Apple for around 4 years. And starting laptop and in later products also, AI use cases started to come in. Like Gen AI has picked up recently, but hardware was developing for that even before to support those AI use cases. So about the journey there, I think one of the core things that Apple stands for is the product, basically the attention to detail and the product thinking. So I'll just give an example. Like they give attention to detail to stuff like, okay, when you like if your phone battery drains down and when you put it on charge, how fast that Apple symbol can come. So to reduce that to milliseconds, like in hardware, that has to be worked upon like for 3 to 6 months. So yeah, so that's the product thinking that I think that I learned there, and I can like the app now we would be developing that I want to put there, and I am putting there. And same right now we have developed products mostly on the back end, but that has gone there also, although it's not visible to the consumer as per se, but yeah, it's helping our sales agents there.
So, before we get into 30 Sundays, what made you move away from Apple, working on these interesting secretive products, and come back to India?
Yeah. So I think I was happy with the job there. The role was good, but I think it was 4 years there. I was doing the DRAM part. So I always had that, like, wanted to do something new, like change fields. And so then I moved back. I wanted to do a startup. And then I moved back to India and met. So I knew Kshitij. So he's like a family friend of mine. I had known him from like, 6, 7 years before. So he's basically my father's childhood friend, son-in-law. So I had known him for 6 to 7 years before that. We had been in touch, but when I moved back to India, I think things got more real.
But you could have done the startup in US also. You were right there at Menlo Park, at the heart of all this innovation. What made you move away?
Yeah, I think there are multiple reasons that you can say. I think India is a booming opportunity in terms of startups. That I thought it's a booming opportunity because the consumer base is growing here. Plus, I think there are more issues in doing startups there as an outsider, to be very frank, than doing it in India.
So, coming back to what you're doing at 30 Sundays, the current product, how does it enable your team members to perform better than people who are taking calls at some travel agents?
Yeah. So before going over the product, I would like to discuss how a sales guy in a travel agency works. Like, what is his workflow? And then I would like to discuss about our product, like how it comes in that workflow and how that AI human handshake happens. So basically, if we see how a traditional travel agency works, how a salesperson works there. So you would see somebody like they would be generating leads through some channel, be it Instagram, be it Google, or some other affiliate channels. So a person would put an inquiry there, put their details there, and then it comes to the sales guy on the back end. So what a sales guy would do, like they'll basically call that guy, try to call the person who has put in a lead. And so a major like 10 to 15% of the time is spent in customer communication. Basically, they'll try to call. The customer won't pick up the call. They'll say, okay, call me at a later time. So any sales guy would do like 5 to 7 attempts before like marking that lead lost. So like 10 to 20% of the time goes in that. Once the call is connected, that they will speak with the consumer and then they'll try to create an itinerary out of that. So if somebody's really creating a personalized itinerary, it would take him or her like around somewhere between more than 1 hour if this person is creating manually that itinerary. If it is,
While on the call or off the call?
yeah, post the call. So generally, how this works is like they'll do a call for 5 to 10 minutes or maybe 10 to 20 minutes, and post that they'll note down the requirements and then they'll create the itinerary. So generally, how it works is like they'll get some leads in a day. They'll try to do all the calls at once and then create an itinerary after that. So the customer getting the first itinerary is almost like creating that itinerary is almost like more than 5 to 6 hours, and sometimes it's even days. If somebody is really getting a personalized itinerary, if there is a standard itinerary, I think that doesn't meet the customer expectations. So if we divide the time 10 to 20% in customer communications, then 40 to 50% in creating the itinerary if it is truly personalized. And once the first cut itinerary is sent, post that it is basically the customization part that happens. Okay, the customer doesn't like the itinerary, he or she wants to change something in the itinerary, like change some activity, change hotels, or change the routing that's there. So that happens, and that takes up like 30 to 40% of the time. And then post that 10 to 15% of the time is closing the itinerary, basically taking the payments and stuff like that, creating trust. So that's how a sales agent journey or sales agent time is divided right now in a traditional travel agency. So now how we have enabled them or how we have made their life easier in this journey. So I'd like to go through this journey. So first is the lead qualification part, where the customer is trying to connect to the consumer. Whenever a lead comes, the sales agent is trying to connect to the customer. So there we have put a combination of, and we are still working on like enhancing our voice bots, but we have put a combination of chatbot and a voice bot. So what it tries to do is basically try to set up a time with the consumer. Okay, what time is he comfortable with? So chat tries to set up a time, and the voice use case that partially out there, it's in pilot and we are enhancing that. That tries to connect the call with the consumer, and as soon as the call is consumer, it will be transferred to our sales agent. So the voice bot or the basically the chat bot will try to ask some few questions like, okay, is this a valid consumer in that sense? Okay, what are the destination he or she is exploring? What kind of itinerary or what kind of trip is he or she looking like? Are they looking for a relaxed vacation? Are they looking for more adventurous kind of things? What are their interests basically? So that's what voice and chatbot work is. So, and then the second part, that creating the itinerary, that we have reduced almost from 1.5 hours or 2 hours to less than 5 minutes. So the technology that we have developed is basically when a sales agent is speaking with the consumer, our AI listens to the call. So it listens to the, I can go in more detail over the
Sure, sure.
later, I think, or but once I'll give an overview, and I think then we can deep dive into the specific text. Like, so the call to itinerary on a high level is basically it listens to the call, and then between the sales agent and the consumer, and then post that it creates an itinerary from the supply that we have digitized, all the hotels, activities, flights, and it tries to create the itinerary basis the consumer requirements that we have got on the call, and it tries to be as close as the consumer expectation is, so that the seller gets within 5 minutes. So basically, while on the call, just the call is done, when the call is kept, within 2-3 minutes the seller gets the itinerary and is able to send to the consumer. So that time is largely saved. And then this comes in the customization stage also. Customization stage is a little more complex than the first cut itinerary because there are specific requirements from the consumer that comes in. But we do partly that also. So again, the similar kind of technology comes, whatever the customization is there, that comes into the itinerary. Again, that time comes short. And like what we are building in the app, this customization part, the consumer would be able to do in the app itself. So there would be curated set of recommendations there, and consumer would be able to do the customization there itself. And then the closing part, the payment and stuff, it's all like through Razor Pay payment gateways we have integrated, and that's where basically it gets automated. So we can say like right now we are at X efficiency of what we are operating. So like outside a travel agent would be able to cater like around 7 to 8 leads per day. In our case, they are able to cater to like 16 to 20 leads per day, and with like 1x conversion on that. So the backend tech that we have developed helps in two ways, like catering more leads, and second is improving the conversion because the itinerary is more closer to what the user is expecting.
Got it. See, the real impact is in conversion. Otherwise, you're just saving time, which translates to saving cost, which is anyway an expectation. But just want to understand that more. See, you talked about call to itinerary. There is that work goes into customizing an itinerary. But while the conversation is happening, if I'm calling from a traditional travel agent, and let's say you are calling from 30 Sundays, both of us are calling to the same person, two different calls happen one after the other. How would your call, what you are talking, are you talking in a more informed manner because something is changing in your screen because the AI is listening? Are you able to model the conversation in the manner that the customer may be wanting it to and give some aha moments during that call itself? Or are you saying that the first aha moment is the itinerary, which usually they are not used to getting, which is closer to what they wanted?
Good. So basically, right now, what the short answer is right now, the first aha moment is the itinerary, but there is more to it, what we have developed right now. And I'll talk about what it is there in the future roadmap. The aha moment will come in the call itself. But right now, what is the current state of the product? The first thing that consumer gets is the itinerary. But there is a difference between what our seller says on the call and what a traditional travel agent seller would say on the call. And main thing there we have developed is the audit part. So everybody gives the pitch to the seller. Okay, this is how you should pitch. Basically, our pitch is more more on the educative selling side. So we try to prevent two things here, or try to do two things here which is not there in the traditional travel agency. First is we have taken certain hard stances, like we want to prevent missell. Like in Bali, you shouldn't do certain things, like there is Tanha lot. You shouldn't go there. It's overcrowded. There is Handaragate. We want to keep the consumer informed. Like Handaragate, there is 3 hours line just to click a photo. So we try to prevent selling that. And like another take is like in Nusa Penida, usually what people do is they'll go and do a day trip. They'll go do a day trip, do 4 things at once, like spend 20 minutes at the beach and just a rush tour. So what we prefer there, you should stay at least a night there, because then you will be able to get the real enjoyment there, able to see the sunset and the sunrise both. So one is mis-selling that we try to prevent on our call, and then second is basically certain things that we have realized from the calls itself, like what consumers say about the feedback, that we are trying to incorporate. So how this all is incorporated is through our strong call audit system. When our AI listens to call, one thing is it does create an itinerary. Second, it tries to give a seller score, basically. So there are certain parameters on what the score is based. Okay, so has seller missold something? Has seller tried to like sell something? Okay, he's saying, okay, you can basically take this flight. It is cheaper, but we know like that flight gets delayed a lot, so we won't recommend that. Or what we want to sell as a company, like that experience, is that seller able to like this certain hard stance that we have taken, that we don't want to sell this, we want to sell these things. Is the seller doing that? Then third thing is seller explaining the destination to the consumer? Is he telling how because one thing that consumer, when he's coming, he doesn't have a picture of the destination, like how the map is structured. Basically, there are mountains there is a beach area. So it becomes more visual for the consumer in his head. Okay, these are the different areas that I can explore. Seller doing that. Then fourth is seller handling the objections of the consumer that is coming. The questions that are coming, is the seller able to answer those questions correctly, or is seller just avoiding those questions? So these are like almost real time. We get these scores we get, and then these feedbacks are given to the seller by their sales manager. So this is right now the state of the product, like what is helping our sellers to sell rightly. So that is there right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so this is in a way which is good, but this is more like improving the performance of your people. See, in all this, the user is seeing that okay, I'm talking to a better person here. Maybe this will inspire confidence, build interest, and all those things. That's great. But the aha moment is still they'll just in their mind they'll discount. Okay, this person was better than that person versus 30 Sundays is better than XYZ travels, right? So in future, in your roadmap, what will happen such that in the call itself, my mind switches and then say, oh no, I want to go with 30 Sundays because you're giving me that aha moment much sooner. What can happen or what you're working towards?
Yeah. So, like, the vision that we see in 2, 3 years is like this call would be done by a voice agent, and the user, the itinerary as so there are two parts to it. Like, if we see the journey on the app, so there would be a voice agent right in the app itself. So what it would happen, like, user would conversate like it's conversating with an agent. So this is like a new kind of interface that's not there in this industry. So basically, user would like open the app, and there would be it would like he's talking to an agent. Same that thing would be there in the app. He'll tell his requirements. That the voice agent would conversate and then give a first cut itinerary. And then post that, basically the voice agent would be right there. So let's say user wants to say, okay, like add me one night in Gili Islands. So in real time, the itinerary would switch in just like 5 seconds. The itinerary would switch. Okay, this is where I have added Gili Islands, and this is the hotel I have added, and this would be more visual for the user. And let's say user want to upgrade the hotels, so that all would become a part of the app, and that this would happen, like this is in our roadmap. In like 6 to 9 months we are doing like this thing would happen. Basically a voice agent would be there, and the customization part or the planning part would be moved to the app itself. So this helps in two things. Like generally it gives the user the customization in the hands of the user. Basically user doesn't have to have that like hesitation to call to a sales agent and like just to do two three changes. He or she will have to talk and then wait for the itinerary. Here it's instant, like, and more visual, like there would be this thing. Then second is, we are in the app itself, we are launching like the video itinerary part. Right now the itinerary is more like, okay, this is a PDF, there are some images there, but what we imagine is like if it becomes like you can feel, okay, I'll go this place, like first I'll visit this place, then this is would be the scenic view behind that. So kind of a video itinerary would come in the app. So yeah, so those are the like two.
On the voice agent side, what is the state of affairs today? Where are you using voice agents? What is working? What is not working? And in the next 18 months, is it like you have not built it and you will build it, or you're saying that technology readiness is not there, or there's some complex problem that you have not been able to solve as yet, which will get solved, and that's when this will become available? I mean, just give me the insider
Yeah.
feel of it, that what is working, what is not working, how you're thinking.
Right, right. So voice agents, if we see right now, I think one major problem that is there is latency. So, and latency becomes a problem as soon as basically the context window increases. So, as soon as the conversation starts to get longer, the latency increases because there is more context and you have to give a more meaningful answer. You would have to have like multiple agents behind to give the right answer. So, that's why the latency increases. So, current state, like current use cases where we are using the voice agents is for follow-up calls and pre-sales calls. So basically, and those are like 2 to 3 minute calls. There it is working fine. There the latency right now is not an issue. Like in less than a second, the response goes out in most cases. So yeah, so in 2 to 3 minute call, it's working good. There is not an issue. So it basically qualifies the lead, answers some question if the consumer has some questions, but it's not able to do that consultative sell right now because there is latency there. So there are two parts to it. One, when it comes in the app, like, okay, there would be like you can say a mic button. A mic button happens and the itinerary gets updated. So there, a little latency initially would also be fine because you are not like real time talking to somebody, and there would be some loading happening. And in like, let's say if it doesn't come in 1 second, it comes in 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. Then also it might be okay initially. But we see like as the technology is moving very fast, like models coming daily, a new some company like Google recently launched their new set of models. So we see that this latency problem would be the foundational models in 1 year or so, I think, would be solved. So that longer calls would be easily possible. Plus, we are doing some things on our specific use cases. So this latency problem can also be solved if we pre-process certain things. Like if we have, okay, like consumer is going to ask these kind of questions. If we pre-process, then also it gets solved. So we are working on that front also.
Got it. So, but see, if the models are solving latency, which by increasing the context window, that gets solved for everyone. See, the customer is willing to have a nice conversation with a voice agent if the conversation is so good, and that is better than a regular travel agent conversation. So, let's say a company starts after a year when this technology is mature, and they start off with this thumping, with all this drumming around that we are a voice agent company, you can just call and your itinerary and all that, versus you who has been doing this by then for, let's say, close to 2 years or 1.5 years or something. What is your edge? Why should you win over a company which comes later, but when the technology is mature versus you who has been slogging it and waiting for the technology to come through?
Yeah. So I think many people, like, this question comes to us also. Like, many people say, okay, ChatGPT is making an itinerary. So what are you doing different? Like, they can also create an itinerary. But I think this, and like as you said, a company can come later 2 years and like just build it out. But I think there is more to it. It's not just like somebody out of the box can come, and because it's a vertical play here, and we are like full stack solution here. So there is a lot of data that we have collected in the past 9 months, and we are going to collect that in future also. So I'll just give some examples of the level of data that we collect. So the data is being collected from the first call itself. So the first call happens, the data gets collected. What was the call? What was the user requirement there? What kind of questions the user is asking, and what kind of products are they wanting to that level. Okay, this is the new market demand that is coming. And then even in the customization stage, we keep track of all the versions in our like backend tool. Okay, what the users are changing in the version, what are they want to change, so that all track is kept there. So that helps us in understanding a specific user also for personalization later, and then in general a cohort of users also. So like we are now right now targeting couples. So that level of data customization is till customization is collected, and it doesn't stop there. So post the booking happens. So as we offer like changes in the itinerary 48 till now 48 hours before your trip starts. So post that also customizations happen. So we keep track of that data. What kind of questions are, what kind of doubts user have there, what kind of like they're scared of something, they have certain questions. We track that. And when the person is on trip, we track the feedback at a level like to the activity level, basically specific activity. Like we can break down an activity, a tour, in 2 3 cases. Like there is ATV ride plus there is, let's say, some waterfall that has happened together. Okay, what was the experience of the ATV ride, what was the experience of the waterfall, and what was the combined experience of the tour. So like if people just go in TripAdvisor, they'll see, okay, that ATV ride standalone was this experience, but ATV rides with waterfall, they don't know, because it has to be it's a combination of thing. Like the package is a combination of thing. It's not a standalone thing. Like if we see ATV ride is hectic, and you shouldn't do after, like you shouldn't go on a beach after that for like a photo shoot or something, because you would be tired, you won't be dressed up and all that. So the data that we are collecting, I think, and it would be collected more as we move forward, that gives us basically the user insights. I think that helps us create a better product, I would say, than a company coming like 2 years later, because they would also need, and this is not like there is data that is widely available, and that I was saying like isolated data is available, but combination of data and what users like travel agent user calls are not there anywhere on the internet. It's for more.
But
Yeah.
just to push you back, see this data very quickly they will also populate. Like in one season they will be at par, right? It's not that every season is adding lot of new information. Yes, there'll be marginal new information. This is not a sustainable advantage. This is not something which can kind of make you fight them in the second season. Or am I missing something here? So I think they're like, if this data is also at destination level. I think it's not ki Bali ka, like data for Bali would be extrapolated to Vietnam, or data for Bali would be extrapolated to Maldives or something. This is a destination level thing. Plus, this is a segment level thing also. So you're right that they can get that data, but I think it would take time. It's not just like one season thing. It takes time to develop those insights. Our data is also refining day by day. It's not that we have collected all the data. And plus the user personalization things that we are getting for that specific, because in this industry the repeat and referrals are high. So the personalization thing that we are able to get the user data, that is also something that is there. So, but now let's think about it from the other side. There is a Make My Trip, which has been in business for 20 years or more. Even if for other things, their calls are also getting recorded for quality purposes. So they would have the recordings somewhere. They would have the transcripts. They have not used them, but they can start using them now. They can start asking the same set of questions. They have all the destinations opened up. They have a lot more customers calls that they would have done. They would have seen it year after year after year how things are. So they can actually connect more dots and draw better patterns. What do you think about them? They're also at somewhere they are serious about this business, just that they have not cracked it in the traditional manner in which an OTA product is structured, which is more workflow oriented and no conversation interaction is limited in that. And that product is about sorting and filters and all those things versus really kind of browsing through packages and going and customizing and all that you are offering. Let's say when they don't crack that, like let's say they are not able to kind of pioneer this product, it's okay. With their distribution, they need not be pioneers. It's smart of them to not be pioneers and wait for pioneers like you to figure things out, and then put all their kind of bets on one thing, and just out execute you on speed and execute on distribution and other things. So how will you I understand, like if you have an edge against a new player, then an old player should have an edge against you also when it comes to data. When it comes to approach other things, I'm with you. But on data, are you worse off than MMT? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So I think there are two parts to it basically. I think there are two kind of companies here. One is like MMT, which are like OTA players basically. And then one is the travel agency kind of companies like you can say Thomas Cook, SOTC, the traditional ones. So in terms of MMT, there I think one thing that's needed here to build a vertical marketplace or basically a vertical play here, package business, a travel agency or travel package business. I think there requirement is focus there. So I'm not sure if MMT focus is there, but let's assume like it is there. They're focusing on the packages business, and we can assume that they have data of the calls. But one thing is like, as far as I know, they don't have data at an like activity or that granular level. They have an like most of these companies collect feedback at an overall package level, so that's there. But still, we can assume like they have more data than us because they have been in operations for like let's say past 10 to 15 years. So that one thing is majorly focused, and second thing that I see majorly is the AI human handshake that's there. So we can say that consumer would be using our app and doing it, but the consumer that is coming to us is coming to a travel agent. So we envision like let's say a salesperson like today spends like let's say 7 to 8 hours converting a lead or converting an inquiry. We envision that this might get reduced to like 30 minutes, and like this 7 to 8 hours would get reduced to 30 minutes, or sometimes it would be completely DIY, but that a little far off. But we can say like okay, 30 minutes it would be reduced. But and we envision that basically there would be the AI would be handling most of the part, and human would only step in if there is some escalation or there is some objection. Yeah. So as a company, we are starting to build that for the, as we say, like we are AI first company. So that is what our DNA is. Basically, we from the start we are building. Okay, there is already AI human handshakes in our system. Basically, the voice bot does the initial call, then sales agent takes over, then itineraries created by our AI tool, and then sales agent sells that itinerary. So there are cues to the sales agent. Okay, these are the pitch elements. So there is a lot of like this AI human handshake, and for a traditional company, for sure they can do, but to retrain this whole set of people, like this large batch of people, it's a little tougher because they have to like reinvent the system there. So I think focus and this AI human handshake, like that AI first, if you start building from there, I think it becomes much easier. So I'll try to explain this with an example of like how a call and how a call gets processed in our system to the itinerary. When a call happens, really, like in a call, consumer would have some questions. They'll tell their preferences. So seller like explains the destination. Seller tells, okay, what is your, then asks some questions to the consumer, and then consumer tells his or her preferences, and then asks some questions. Broadly, this is the call about. So in if we deep dive into like what are the preferences, how the consumer says their preferences. So in a package, basically there are 3 to 4 elements. There is flights, there is hotels, there is activities, and then there are certain add-ons that consumer might want, like insurance and stuff like that. So how? So this is all like unstructured. Like consumer will say, okay, like give me a direct flight, or I want a flight which is in total like less than 15 hours, something like that. And in hotel, they'll talk more about the experience that they're wanting rather than saying, okay, this is the specific hotel I want to stay in. Like they'll tell, okay, I want like a pool villa, or I want a beachfront property, like it should be facing the beach, or they want, okay, it should be walkable to the beach. So those kind of things, or they want a room with a jacuzzi or a bathtub in it. So those kind of like preferences come from the user, and then they'll say, okay, I want to do more of mountainous region stuff, I want to do more of adventurous. So this kind of inputs that come from the user in a call. Then post that, what we do is we use LLMs plus clustering to like structure this data on the backend. So LLMs try to segregate this. Okay, what was said about the flight preferences, what was said about the hotel preferences, what was said about the activity preferences. And there are two parts to it. Okay, user wants to stay in these kind of hotels, and user And similar for activities, user want to do these specific activities that are must do for him, and these specific activities user doesn't want to do at all. So then we try to structure this data. Okay, what should be included and what should be excluded, and then there is a budget constraint. Okay, how in total I want this much budget for my entire trip. So these are the parameters that we try to extract from the call, and then basis that an itinerary gets created. So let's say we have extracted user wants a beachfront property or a bathtub in the room. The supply that we have built in our tool is also built that way. So we have like granular level. Okay, the hotels that are coming, we have scraped. So it's not just like the B2B portal that we are getting the feed, because they don't provide this data. So we have matched the data, like we have done the mapping from the B2B portals to the online available, like booking, scraping of data from booking.com or other portals, and then married them using LLMs and AI there. So that is helping, like, okay, to create an itinerary that matches the user expectation. I think there are hard engineering problems. So I'll talk about just like one or two things to give examples here. So one is like, let's say when our app comes out. So right now, if we see any app like package, like travel holiday packages or holiday companies app, their interface is built more on, okay, you can go, there would be itinerary, and you can go, okay, add this activity. You if you want to edit something, some activity, you will go and add, like, okay, click on the activity, and then basically they'll give a list of activities, and then you have to go and like edit, figure out on your own. So if we see the user mindset here, the user is coming to a travel agent because there is like paradox of choice. The user have a lot of choices. We need him or her to basically help him or her to narrow it down. So the interface that we think here that would be going in our app is a curated set of recommendation basis the user activity. So it like user is coming to us because he has a lot of choices. Now if we give more choices, then it becomes more confusing for the user. So we in our app we plan, okay, there would be 5 to 7 set of recommendation at whenever a user asks for some recommendations, and then he or she will be able to switch that with a click of a button. So here the ranking and recommendation part and personalizing it to the user becomes quite, like, it has to be done in a really good way, otherwise it won't work, like the app usage won't be there. So that I feel is a like complex engineering problem, because it has to be like done in this domain, in the travel domain, considering the travel package data and stuff. And then another is basically the voice AI side, because even if the technology comes, then also you have to like have multiple agents working in sync, because you would be fetching availability in real time, and you still need to reduce latency on the backend of your systems. So that is another thing. I think that's a complex problem that would need to be solved.